Hey, I'm back. Can't get rid of me that easily. I know, haven't made a video in a while, but more are coming, slowly but surely. If you miss hearing the sound of my voice though, I now do weekly live streams over on Twitch, so go ahead and check me out there. This, however, is going to be a bit more of an unscripted venture. Pacific Rim, the anime series, just came out, and I binged it all in one sitting, and then went back and rewatched the first one, and against my better judgment, also the second. Just so I could have the entire anthology in my head when talking about the series. Because my initial impression was, it's really good, and I wanted to see if those feelings held up in juxtaposition, and I'm happy to say that they do. And of course, everyone's first question is going to be, well, is it better than the original? And I don't think you're asking the right question. One is a full-length, big-budget live-action movie, and the other is an animated TV series. And despite them taking place in the same universe and therefore sharing a canon, there are definitely things in the animated series that I would have felt would be dumb if they had been in the live-action film, and vice versa. So don't go into Pacific Rim the Black expecting the same experience you got out of the first film. And if you do that, I think you'll be able to have a good time. Yes, it's also 3D CG, but honestly this is one of Polygon Pictures' better looking productions, at least from what I've seen from them. The composition is solid, and there were more than a handful of moments I'd call downright beautiful. Like, I remember the first town the characters went to, and there's this wide sweeping shot, and it just looks really washed out, and I thought to myself, I'm glad the rest of the show doesn't look this way. And the fact that it doesn't really helps to highlight how deserted and desolate this city is. And on the note of CG, there are of course going to be some drawbacks. The kaiju, for example, look a lot more artificial and blocky compared to organic in the films. But they're far from unrecognizable, and maybe it was the smart decision to try a new style rather than an imitation of a previous one. The Jaegers are really slick though, which I guess is a good jumping off point into the fights. And I'll be honest, the first episode of the series really made me think that kaiju fights were going to be more prevalent, so don't go in expecting a Monster of the Week style format like I kind of was. And time out for just 1 second, but Netflix, if you wanted to finance like a Jurassic Fight Club style Pacific Rim series, I think a lot of people, including myself, would watch the shit out of that. Anybody else remember that series? The whole pitting two dinosaurs against each other sort of thing in like terrible CG, but it had this weird mockumentary edge to it? I think that could work here. Just tossing that pitch out there. That's not to say the ensuing story, or characters, or any of that is bad, just that the format is pretty similar to what you'll find in the films. Big monster fight, slower point where we learn about the characters. Big monster fight, slower point with character development and progression, and then the climax. And watching through all of the Pacific Rim canon that there is really makes me appreciate this human element. Like I said, I'm perfectly fine with two big hulking masses just duking it out on screen, but in the absence of that, the characters are really what carry it. I think that's why I enjoyed this series, loved rewatching the first film, and just couldn't be fucked with the second one. They're like seatbelts. Vital, but underappreciated, and if you get into a car that doesn't have them, you are going to notice, and your experience will be worse as a result. But yeah, the human cast in Pacific Rim the Black is pretty good. And while it might now be a bit more fair to compare it to the live-action films, because as I said, these structures are pretty similar, I'm still not going to. It just feels like punching down, because no, unlike the film, the series does not contain raw charisma given human form, aka Idris Elba.
Today we are canceling the apocalypse!
So judging them on their own merits, the cast does a good job. The driving force is largely a sibling dynamic, which is not unique to Pacific Rim the Black, but in the movies, those relationships aren't so much explored as... yeah. I'm glad the series breaks that trend. It lends to a very nuanced and interesting relationship that continues to develop as the story goes on. The relationship certainly has flashes of the typical overprotective older brother opposite the energetic and adventurous little sister, but it quickly expands beyond that. Both Taylor and Haley feel well realized, and they each have their own struggles and trauma. This baggage is even a source of conflict at times, however, it's never enough to drive a permanent wedge between the two who very much see each other as their rock. It comes across as really genuine and was enough to hook me for this 7-episode run. As for the rest of the cast, they range from pretty dang good in my opinion to can take 'em or leave 'em. But likewise, with the series only being 7 episodes, you're not going to spend a ton of time with the characters you are less likely to enjoy. Feel free to let me know what you think of them in the comments down below though. Tier list it up, by all means. Beyond these aspects though, there are some ways Pacific Rim the Black expands on ideas that were brought up earlier in the franchise. There's plenty of the usual callbacks and references to stuff that's happened before, but the series actually goes out of its way to expand more on the whole idea of drifting and how it can potentially mess you up. It takes that mental aspect and stacks on new layers of danger as well as the very real potential for abuse by others. Hell, minor spoilers, but it's used for interrogation, which just feels like a very natural but cool extension of the technology. There's also several other ideas and concepts that are introduced, but never really get a chance to be fully fleshed out in just these 7 episodes, and it really feels like they're more setting up for a second season, which I believe has been confirmed. So here's hoping they get equally as well developed. So overall, how does Pacific Rim the Black stack up? Pretty well in my opinion. It feels like a very worthy addition to a fun franchise that I have a lot of love for. There's a balance it doesn't always strike well between being pretty dark sometimes and a little too self-aware when it comes to the humor, but there are more than enough moments in this series that just put a big smile on my face, and it's only 7 episodes, so if you're at all tempted, I'd say just sit down and knock it out. A neat setup with an entire continent lost in an already fun universe with pretty good characters and animation? What more could you ask for? But as always, those are just my thoughts, and I would love to hear what you have to say. I admittedly am a big sucker for this genre, so it wasn't gonna take a lot to sway me. Plus, with Godzilla vs. King Kong coming out at the end of March, along with a new Godzilla anime series, I'm just riding the high at this point. It's a good time to be a kaiju fan, is all I'm saying. But yeah, let me know if you share this interest and why. I don't really have a particular reason that I call back to for why I enjoy these movies, I just kinda do. Also, is there anything you particularly liked or disliked about this season and why? And did I at all sway you to watch it if you haven't? Answers to those and any other questions you may have can be left down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I promise I'm going to try to get back to at least some consistency with uploading. Like I said, I am working on videos, it's just that they're manga based and I'm trying to put in a decent amount of effort, so they're taking a while. And of course I have lots of ideas for those, but I also have other non-manga videos that I want to tackle, so all of that is coming, stay tuned. Also, if you're not sick of me, I'm currently live on Twitch when this video goes up, so come join me there if you want. But thank you again for watching, and as always, an especially big thanks goes out to my awesome patrons, OverjoyedSoup, MVPino, Carjose, and everyone else whose support helps make videos like these possible. Links to that Patreon if you'd like to join them, my shirts, and everything else are either down below or on the screen right now. And with that, I will see you guys next time.